Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, and welcome to the 100th episode of my channel. I wanted to do a different kind of video today to celebrate, and so today we're doing Fact or Fiction, where I'll be talking about some popular stories from the internet, and you can guess whether or not these are fact or fiction. The way this will work is I will do a brief synopsis of the story. You can decide whether you think this is fact, fiction, or undetermined, and at the end of the video, I will tell you which was which. Our first tale of the internet is the 1814 beer flood that supposedly killed 9 people. Legend has it that in October of that year, a rupture in a brewery tank containing 3,500 barrels of beer caused a flood in the London parish of St. Giles that caused 9 deaths. Similar to the molasses flood disaster in America in 1919, but over 100 years prior. Is this story fact or fiction? Next up we have the rumor that Marilyn Monroe had 6 toes on her left foot. This tale originated from photographer Joseph Jasker, who in March of 1946, as a favor to a friend who ran a modeling agency, took some test shots of a 19-year-old model named Norma Jean Doherty. Young Norma Jean would of course go on to become one of the most famous women of the 20th century under the name of Marilyn Monroe. Joseph later published a book of these photos called The Birth of Marilyn, The Lost Photographs of Norma Jean. It was while he was redeveloping these photos that he noticed something odd, that in one of the photos it was very clear that Marilyn had 6 toes on her left foot, and it is said that this was removed via surgery before she became truly famous. Is this story true, or is it bunk? Our next mystery involves a particular pool chemical used to reveal urine in a pool. Many tales have been told that there is a chemical that you can put into pool water that will turn either red or purple or any multitude of colors should someone decide to urinate in a public pool. This chemical, of course, being used by various public pool facilities as a way to discourage people from urinating in their pools out of what would obviously be embarrassment for being caught. Is this a real chemical? Or is it not? Our next tale for you to deduce the veracity of involves Italian dictator Benito Mussolini and the claim that he made trains run on time. This was, of course, one of the boasts made about the superiority of his leadership during his time as the Italian dictator, but is it true? Next up, we have the Little Mermaid phallus. Most fans of Disney have probably heard this legend that clearly visible on the VHS cover of The Little Mermaid. In the background, one of the spires of the Golden Castle of Atlantis is in fact a massive dong. It is said that this was put there by a disgruntled artist who was about to be laid off by Disney. Is this story true or just an urban legend? Coming up next, we have Captain Pugwash and the characters' names' double meanings. It is claimed that the British children's show Captain Pugwash, that aired from 1958 to 1967, had character names that were risque maritime puns, such as Master Bates, Seaman Staines, and Roger the Cabin Boy. Is this true, or is it not? Our 7th entry on this list is Who Stripped Jessica Rabbit? There is a rumor that in a brief scene in Roger Rabbit during a car crash, that Jessica Rabbit's underwear disappears and her nether regions are clearly visible. It is said that this was done as a inside joke by the animators who often like to slip things into the frames to amuse themselves. Next up, we have the rumor that red food coloring is made from ground-up bugs. It is said that cochineal and its close cousin carmine, also known as carminic acid, are derived from the crushed carcasses of a particular South and Central American insect and used to make red coloring in foods and various cosmetics. Is this one true? At number 9, we have a rumor that most of you internet users have probably heard before, and that is, did Al Gore say, "I invented the internet"? And at number 10, we have snuff films. Is it true that films are routinely made for entertainment purposes in which the participants are murdered on camera. Alright guys, we are about to go over the answers to whether or not all of those 10 items I just talked about are real or not, but before that, please give me a moment to talk about my business. I want to thank each and every one of you that has joined me on this journey and what has taken to get to the 100th episode of my channel. As you likely know, I started this channel as a way to advertise my business, Chimera Miniatures, where I make all manners of custom miniatures, both safe for work and not safe for work. If you enjoy the content on this channel and want to help it keep growing, I would kindly ask that you check out my eBay, Etsy, and Mercari, and perhaps consider purchasing a miniature. If miniatures aren't your thing, but you would still like to donate financially, I do have a Patreon. Links to all of these are in the description. Now that I've told you about that, let's talk about whether or not these stories are real. So, did a beer flood in 1814 kill 9 people? Well, it most certainly did. This one is true. Not only were 9 people killed in this flood on October 7th of 1814, but 2 houses were actually demolished in the sea of beer that suddenly loosed upon the town. So, was Marilyn Monroe born with an extra toe on her left foot? Well, no. This one is false. The photo in question that supposedly showed this extra digit in the early photos is in fact just a trick of the light and shadow, and in fact other photos from that same photo shoot clearly show that she only has 5 toes. It is weird to think that someone who was as well known in so many movies and as heavily photographed as this individual would somehow have just never had anyone look at her feet. And that's because this is simply a rumor made to sell books. Now, about that pool chemical. Is there really something that you will change colors if you happen to pee in the pool, embarrassing you in front of everybody? Well, no. This one is also false. This one is just a story mostly told to children to dissuade them from peeing in the pool. Usually it's told in the same style as most urban legends that someone has a friend of a friend who this happened to. Now, oddly enough, in my own life, I remember my dad's best friend from college telling me the story of how he used to work at a public pool as a lifeguard, and that he got a hold of some of this chemical and put some in his last day on the job, and that there was a guy in the pool who suddenly had a large purple cloud following him. And upon finding out that this was false, I realized that my dad's friend lied to me. So, live and learn. Now we come back to the Mussolini myth. Did Mussolini make the trains run on time? Absolutely not. This one is false as well. I honestly thought this one was true. That was one of the few things I thought I knew about Benito Mussolini, is that he made the trains run on time. But apparently, this one was all propaganda. One of the best ways to gain support of the people you lead is to do something to benefit them. And if you can't do that, the next best thing is to convince them that you have done something to benefit them. So after the March of Rome, which was itself a myth of fascist propaganda, on October 28th of 1922 that resulted in King Vittorio Emanuele's appointment of Benito as the prime minister and the ascension to power of the fascists in Italy, he needed to convince people in Italy that fascism was a system that worked to their benefit. Thus was born the myth of fascist efficiency, with the train as its symbol. The word was spread that Mussolini had turned the dilapidated Italian railway system into one that was the envy of all Europe. This gave rise to a myth where the trains in Italy were dependable and punctual, and it was Mussolini's was responsible for this. And that wasn't quite true. The system had fallen into a rather sad state during World War I, and while it did improve quite a bit in the 1920s, it wasn't because of Mussolini. A lot of the repair work had been performed before he and his fascists came to power. So, funny story, my sister spent some time in Italy in her college years, and that was her biggest complaint, because she has a very type A personality and very punctual, but apparently the trains still don't run on time there. So what about The Little Mermaid? Did a disgruntled artist about to lose his job leave a nasty little surprise that wouldn't be found till later? No. Well, at least not intentionally. So the image that you see every time this myth comes up is an actual image of the cover, but the information surrounding it is wrong. First of all, the artist was neither disgruntled nor about to be fired. In fact, he was a freelance artist who didn't officially work for Disney, so he was not going to be dismissed. Also, while this image is always attributed to the home video release of the movie, the castle with the offending spire did appear in promotional material for the theatrical release. While the original movie poster and the VHS cover art and the Laserdisc cover art does vary slightly, the castle is the same in all images. As the supposedly real story goes, the artist was rushing to complete his work, basically at 4 a.m. in the morning, and without realizing what he was doing, while rushing to complete the castle, one of the spires ended up looking a little dick-like. Supposedly, the artist didn't even realize that it looked that way until the controversy started coming from the image, and apparently this artist was also a youth pastor, and one of his students from his youth group that he led had heard about the controversy on the radio and informed him. And it is also true that later releases of the film, they did edit this spire. So, while yes, the original art of the Little Mermaid posters did have what looks to be a phallic spire on the Golden Castle, it is completely by accident. And honestly, I feel like that should have been obvious considering whether or not this man was a disgruntled employee. The fact is if you're trying to put what could be seen as a pornographic image in material for a children's movie, and you're going up against Disney, that's not really a fight you want to start just because you're mad. So, still in the realm of cartoons, did Captain Pugwash have a bunch of characters whose names were double entendres? Again, absolutely not. This one is false. So, despite this being published in a British newspaper as fact, there are no characters known as Master Bates, Seaman Staines, or Roger the Cabin Boy. In fact, the characters present are Master Mate, Tom the Cabin Boy, and Pirates Barnabas and Willie. There is no character in the show with the designation of Seaman. Series creator John Ryan successfully won retractions and settlements from the Sunday Correspondent and The Guardian after both newspapers claimed the show's characters did indeed have smutty names, and that the BBC had taken it off the air as a result. The Guardian's statement ran as follows. In the Young Guardian of September 13, 1991, we stated that the Captain Pugwash cartoon series featured characters called Seaman Staines and Master Bates, and for that reason, the series has never been repeated by the BBC. We accept that it is untrue that there were ever any such characters. Furthermore, the series continues to be shown on television and on video. We apologize to Mr. Ryan, the creator, writer, and artist of the Captain Pugwash films and books. We have agreed to pay him damages and his legal costs. Now, I remember first hearing this rumor all the way back in 2006 and seeing what I thought was an official clip of the Captain Pugwash show on, at the time, a very young version of YouTube, and I remember them being called Master Bait. So apparently that one had been redubbed by somebody, and probably is why this rumor still goes around. We're still not out of Toontown yet, so did Jessica Rabbit flash the entire audience in a frame from Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Well, honestly, this one is undetermined. There are many rumors about the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, as it has a more adult sense of humor than most Disney films at the time, and there are several instances where it is said that the animators snuck some dirty things in. The one we are talking about right now occurs in the Laserdisc version in frame 2170 to 2172, and it is, so they are in a car crash, and both Detective Eddie Valiant and Jessica Rabbit get flung from their cab. Now, as we can see here in these stills from the film, that yes, Jessica Rabbit's pubic region is darker than the surrounding areas. This is, it's not really clear. She doesn't really appear to have any actual genitals, and this has been analyzed quite a bit. on all versions and high definition versions of the film that we could find, but ultimately it's not known if it's just shading or if this really was meant to be, everybody getting a peek at Jessica's rabbit. No artist has ever claimed that this is what they were doing, and Disney has not censored this in any way in future releases of the film. So as of right now, we just don't know, but it's clear that Disney doesn't think that that's what it is. So is that red Skittle you're snacking on right now colored with the guts of a bug? Well, it might be. This one's true. It is true that cochineal and its close cousin carmine are indeed derived from crushed carcasses of the female Dactylopithecus coccus, an insect that inhabits a type of cactus known as an opuntia. This bug was the source of a red dye used by Aztecs and Mexican Indians for centuries before the arrival of the Spaniards. Those indigenous peoples would collect the cochineal insects, briefly immerse them in hot water to kill them, and then dissolve the female's waxy coating, and then dry them in the sun. The desiccated insects would then be ground up into a fine powder. This pigment was quickly taken on by the Spaniards as well, and became one of the first products to be exported from the New World to the Old. Europeans immediately took to the beautiful bright scarlet color both for its vibrant hue and its extraordinary color-fast properties, ensuring that boatloads of cochineal insects would make the transatlantic trek. While we do have several synthetic dyes that can give us this color, it is still used widely as a coloring agent for foodstuffs, beverages, and cosmetics, as many vibrant red dyes made from artificial pigments are in fact quite toxic. It is not an easy process, as it takes about 70,000 of the insects to make 1 pound of cochineal. While it is used in a variety of foods, it is not kosher because Jewish dietary laws prohibit the inclusion of insects or their parts in food. However, minus a few allergic reactions, it is a safe food colorant. This is mainly kind of a ooh factor in the Western world, as many other parts of the world see no problem in including insects in their cuisine. In fact, Starbucks got in a little bit of hot water in March of 2012 when people realized that this was being used to color their strawberries and cream frappuccino mix. Now, as far as finding a replacement natural dye, there are some food scientists that are experimenting with purple sweet potatoes as an alternative. But yes, if your food or makeup is a vibrant red, chances are there's some bugs in it. So, did Al Gore claim to invent the internet? No, he didn't. This one's false. I remember hearing that he said this. I was in middle school during the election between him and former President George W. Bush, but even a Snickers commercial was making fun of this. But the truth is, Al Gore never claimed that he invented the internet, nor did he say anything that could be reasonably be interpreted that way. This was more or less him, something he did say being misattributed by pundits who were trying to have a go at him. So this all came from a misattributed quote when Al Gore was doing a campaign interview conducted by Wolf Blitzer on CNN's Late Edition on March 9th, 1999. He was asked what distinguished him from his challenger for the Democratic presidential nomination, Senator Bill Bradley of New Jersey. Gore replied in part, "During my service in the United States Congress, I took the initiative in creating the Internet. I took the initiative in moving forward a whole range of initiatives that have proven to be important to our country's economic growth and environmental protection, improvements in our educational system." So basically, he didn't in any way, shape, or form say he created or invented the. He didn't say he invented. He didn't say he took initiative in creating the Internet, not inventing it. He didn't state that this was his idea, more that he just supported initiatives that would bring the internet to the forefront of the American public and the education system. So this was just a way for people on the opposite side to have a go at him, to make him look stupid or crazy, but he really never said what they said he said. I personally think Gore was a bit of an easy target. I don't personally think Al Gore is a very good public speaker. I fell asleep on multiple occasions when I was forced to watch his film An Inconvenient Truth in one of my classes in college. And I think the fact that he was not a charismatic speaker made it easier to make fun of him and misquote what he said. Because when someone isn't interesting to listen to, it's a lot easier to get people to just go with the fact that they said something dumb. And finally, are snuff films real? By which we mean, is there an industry where people record murders that they will then sell the recordings of for profit? Well, Snopes says this one is false, but honestly, I think we've proven recently that this one is true. So, I don't know. Whatever you guessed on this one, you're correct. False, true, unknown, any answer works here. So while I don't think there are any professional film studios out there with a setup like MGM where they've got sound stages and backlots and all that are specifically set up to make, snuff films, it has definitely been proven that there are people on the dark web and out there who have recorded awful things on tape specifically for the purpose of selling them to absolute sickos. While it is definitely exaggerated how widespread and prevalent this is, it is a definitely real thing, at least as far as my research has shown me. I'm not so stupid as to actually go on the dark web and try and find one, that's not my thing, but I definitely think Snopes had this one wrong. Though there is just as good a chance that they did better research than I did, and I am wrong. So whatever you guessed on this one, I'll give you a point. And that's our video today, guys. I want to thank you all so much for joining me on these first 100 videos, and I sincerely hope that you'll join me for the next 100. Be sure to leave a comment about how many of these you got right and how many you got wrong, and let me know which one of these, if any, was the most surprising for you to find out the truth about. As always, everybody, if you want to support the channel, like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon, buy a mini, or just share the video around. It all helps. As always, I'm Mr. Sean, this is Chimera Miniatures, and until we meet again, I hope that you alpha a great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye!